unfortunately, we're seeing those lifespans of pets getting lower. Its cancer rates are very high in pets. And so it's, an unfortunate reality, but there's a lot that we can do about it. And, the first thing being to try to get your pets on what's called a species appropriate diet.
We have our last session of the day, but I think we're going to turn to something that some people, for better or worse, put this above their own health. We want you to put your own health at top, but some people put their pets' health first. So it's my pleasure to welcome integrative veterinarian Dr. Megan Barrett. She is dedicated to enhancing the health and well-being of pets with a holistic approach, and she specializes in pet rehabilitation and in pain management, kind of blending traditional veterinary practices with Eastern medicine, customized nutrition, acupuncture. So some really great kind of molding there. And she's also the author of a book called From Basic to Bougie, the blueprint to upgrade your pet's diet safely and simply. So we're going to talk about helping pets thrive into their senior years. Welcome, Dr. Barrett.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is great to have you here. And you're joining us from Hawaii, am I right? So
Yes, that's right.
we're jealous. We're very jealous. It's like, I don't know if you can hear the rain outside my window, but it's like beating against my window. Not nice here in New Jersey. But let's talk about our sweet pets. First, I just want to start with the book a little bit. I love the title, so fun. What inspired you to write that? And if you could just kind of give us an overview of the book.
Definitely. So I was inspired by my holistic veterinary practice and my patients, and just the recurring questions from pet owners who wanted to provide the best care for their pets, but felt overwhelmed or unsupported by more conventional resources. So the book aims to bridge that gap and show how small intentional lifestyle changes, such as better nutrition or holistic therapies and proactive health measures, can help to transform that pet's well-being and just to empower pet owners to go beyond the basics and the mainstream and go to a more elevated bougie approach to their pet care.
I love it. All right, let's start with, if we're doing the very basic for our pets, we're giving them that processed diet right off the shelf. What impact is that having on our pets, kind of mental health, physical health, and their opportunity for great longevity and really thriving?
Yeah, so pets are mammals like us, and so a lot of the things that you're hearing other presenters talk about when it comes to health and nutrition definitely apply to our pets. And so, this mainstream modern diet that a lot of people are eating and suffering chronic illnesses from has similar effects on our pets. So these processed food diets, such as kibbles and canned foods, they tend to be high in fillers and can be low in quality proteins. The proteins can be denatured by excessive processing, and this can lead to issues like chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, metabolic dysfunction, and then ultimately chronic diseases. So you could see how that could have many different systemic effects, ranging from, reduced gut health, which then can influence that gut-brain axis to have less mental vitality. You can have less energy to impaired metabolism. There can be anxiety and behavior issues from, the chronic inflammation and gut-brain axis impairment. And so, it's basically just the fact that these processed foods you can survive, but you may not be thriving. And so, unfortunately, we're seeing those lifespans of pets getting lower. Its cancer rates are very high in pets. And so it's, an unfortunate reality, but there's a lot that we can do about it. And, the first thing being to try to get your pets on what's called a species appropriate diet, which essentially would mirror what that species would be eating in nature. Meat, organs, bones, and those types of things, as opposed to this like Franken food type of modern diets that have become so normalized. And I think nutrition is one of the best things you can do to proactively support your pet's health on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think so I have a pandemic puppy that we got in 2020, and there were 10 in the litter and we're all in a group chat together. We actually had a puppy family reunion with their mom
That's
last week.
awesome.
Amazing. But in the first few months, it was in the chat that so many of the puppies had serious digestive issues, and the vets were saying this and that. And I had gone with a vet giving me a homemade recipe that I make. And so people were saying, what is your dog eating? What brand? And when I said that, people got like very like, oh no, like that's not safe. And I was like, well, no, it's from a vet, and my dog has no issues, and thank goodness hasn't. But can you kind of talk about that? Like, there is kind of a built-in worry. You don't want to do the wrong thing, but about
Of course.
balancing the benefits of fresh food or homemade diets with the safety and convenience, just kind of helping us make sure we're not doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think having that healthy dose of precaution is good because then you're going to be researching and asking questions. I think that's always a good place to start is from that type of mindset where you're looking for help and not just assuming that, cooking chicken and rice for your dog is going to be good enough, which, um, there's some good things about it, but that's correct that that wouldn't be enough. So my book is a good starting point that obviously I often suggest for people just because it does guide you through this process of going from feeding a kibble or canned food, upgrading kind of the first phase being like maybe you find a commercial diet that's pre-prepared, but you can actually understand everything on the ingredient list and walks you through how to do that. The next phase might be going from a pre-prepared food to then adding in fresh food toppers to it so that you're enhancing nutrition by giving fresh food ingredients, but not completely taking over in home cooking. And then the third phase might be doing, experimenting with home cooking. And obviously, we want to use recipes that have been looked at with a formulation software and, expertise to understand that all of the essential nutrients that need to come in through the diet will be present and in the proper amounts. And especially for your puppy and, dogs at certain life stages, whether they're a small breed versus large breed puppy, those are all things that we take into account. And so using an appropriate recipe for your dog's age, life stage is important factors. But yeah, there's fortunately nowadays a lot of commercially made options that are either pre-prepared or they have like meal prep services that can cook the food and deliver it to your house for pets. There's a lot of frozen raw food options that are really easy because you can just buy it in bulk and then thaw it out as needed. So if you're a little bit more hesitant, that's a good place to start is just something that has been made. But then if you wanted to go into that realm of cooking and doing it yourself, just making sure that you're using a recipe from a trusted source, whether that's a veterinarian or a pet nutritionist, to ensure that the diet has everything that it needs. And, just being aware too that most home cooked recipes for pets would either need quite a few ingredients or they will need some supplements added in. Because as I mentioned before, dogs and cats in nature, they're going to not just be eating the muscle like we do as modern people. They also need to eat some of the bones and the organs and be getting the calcium and the nutrient dense vitamins and minerals that come with those types of body parts. And so very often when I'm formulating a home cooked recipe, it's a meat and some vegetables, and then they might add in a ground eggshell as a calcium source, and then a multivitamin that's made from a whole food ingredients itself, and not as much. I'm trying to avoid synthetics as much as we can too.
Yeah, and then you kind of alluded to it, but it's going to change as your pet ages too. So since we're here talking about healthy active aging, can you talk about some of the ways a pet's nutrition needs change with age and maybe some general adjustments that owners should be thinking about as they start to get up there in years?
Definitely. So I think that if your pet is aging and the one of the best things you can do practice wise is just to throughout their life have lab work done at a regular basis because There are some conditions that if they're happening, you may make nutritional adjustments. But if you have good blood work that's happening for your pet on a regular basis where things are looking normal, they can basically stay on an adult dog food. They don't need to be on a senior food per se. That's one thing that's like in the kibble realm. There's like senior diets, and they tend to, make some adjustments. They may lower the protein for being safe with the kidney situation, that a lot of older pets can get kidney issues. But if the dog is healthy, you actually, they need more protein and adequate protein as they're older. We don't want to just reduce that out of an assumption that they're going to get kidney problems. So that's why it's like, being proactive, looking to seeing where their health status is and adjusting their diet based on that, I think is a better way to do it than the other way around. So their metabolism can slow. So sometimes as their activity level and metabolism slows, they may put on weight and have a body composition change. So that's something to be aware of. And, we want the food to be easily digestible. So I think that a fresh or home cooked, gently cooked food is a really great thing for a senior dog because it's palatable. They want to eat it. It's inducing that good appetite, especially if they're picky, and helping to get the calories in. But sometimes, like in Chinese medicine, which I utilize in my practice, if you're feeding like a frozen raw food to an old pet, that could energetically be like too cold of a food. So there's a lot of factors that we take into account with an individual pet, and then just that arc of their life and their vitality as they're aging. So I think it is it's a cornerstone for me that everything we do is individualized, and so it's hard to make those blanket recommendations. But I think one thing I will say, if you have a pet that's aging, we want them going into that stage of their life as healthy and strong as we can get them. So, having the most optimized diet throughout their life and having good fitness and body, muscle mass and strength and a good body composition, not going into senior years with an obesity problem. These are all going to be important so that we have that good plane of health and nutrition going in, and we can coast with that as they age instead of, waiting to that point to start looking for problems and backpedaling and correcting at that age.
So you bring up a good point about the personalization, and it's something that we talk about all the time, kind of on the human side of things. But is there so for somebody who wants to find, like I'm here in Jersey, a vet like you who has this more holistic practice, is there a group somewhere we can check into to find open-minded vets like yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look online, there is a group called the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Organization or Association. So it's AHVMA. And if you look up the AHVMA, they have a directory, and that can show you what vets may be local to you. A lot of holistic vets are also available for general advice consultations. Like myself, I'm able to speak with people about, general information for answering questions. There's only so much we can do without seeing someone in person, but in terms of just giving you general advice, pointing in the right direction of resources and things like that, a lot of holistic vets are able to do that remotely. So if you find someone that you are drawn to their approach, it's definitely worth reaching out, even if you're not in their area, and just seeing if they can give you some advice from afar too.
Excellent. All right. That's a great resource for us here in the natural products industry. So a lot of people on the call here are in the supplement side of things. So when you're looking for supplements and giving recommendations, what do you generally look for in terms of quality, science backing, just so kind of we here know what vets like yourself are seeking out?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at supplements, I'm trying to typically prioritize brands that are using human grade ingredients, sustainably sourced ingredients, and some type of third-party testing. We want to know that there's that purity and safety, because supplements are already lacking regulation, and then for pets it's even more difficult with that. So working with companies that are transparent about their sourcing, their manufacturing, and their ingredient list is very important. There is an organization called NASC, which is the National Animal Supplement Council, and they will award a quality seal to supplements from suppliers that have passed their third-party audit and maintain this ongoing compliance. And so I try to only use supplements that are having that seal. That's a good, really simple way to just vet your own supplements that you're looking at for your own pets.
That's another great resource. We do work with them sometimes as well. So for any pet owners who maybe are, they have a vet already and they want to talk about to that somebody that they've been working with about more holistic traditional care. This is something that we talk about again on the human side a lot, like having those conversations with your doctor to help them be more open-minded to different avenues. Any recommendations for pet parents in terms of, just bringing other things to the table that you want to consider for your pet's care?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a great question and a very common thing to have that sense of like apprehension about discussing more alternative or what you may perceive as like a not a mainstream therapies or approaches, especially if you have a vet who seems kind of like an old school or they may be from that older generation where they kind of have their way of doing things and may not be open-minded. I think regardless, it's good to, just start by expressing your interest in holistic options, asking your vet for their perspective and see what they say. You could share what goals you have for your pet, such as, improving their longevity, their quality of life, and just ask if they're open to integrating treatments such as acupuncture, herbs, or supplements, nutritional adjustments that are beyond like the prescription diets. And just seeing what they say, and if they are seeming relatively open-minded, you can always offer them other resources that you've come across in your own research. And I think that's going to encourage an open dialogue. However, and I think most vets are pretty open to these things, even if they don't know everything about it. The hope is that they'll be supportive as you, their client, bringing something to them that, they could even learn from. What I do also tell people is that if your vet, if this is an approach you're interested in and your vet is very unsupportive and even might make you feel bad or judged for bringing it up, then, it's okay to get second opinions. It's okay to have other vets on your team. The hope is that everyone's working together for the benefit of your pet's well-being and you feeling supported and in alignment as the pet owner. So, it can be a hard first conversation to have, but I think that it is worth having and seeing how that conversation goes.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you, definitely get the point that it's really personalized. You want to be working with your vet to see what your pet really needs. But if you could just give us kind of a top line recommendations of what you really need to be doing to promote longevity and vibrance in your pets.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have a pet who's already getting older, there are a lot of really awesome supplements that you can utilize. I think the nutritional thing is really big. Hopefully they're going to be on a diet that provides a lot of the things that they need. But there are those additional things like the longevity supplements, such as like they have pet supplements that have NADs and NR, resveratrol, astaxanthin, and all these great coenzymes and antioxidants that can help with that aging process going smoothly. I think joint supplements are another good thing to consider because those can be useful in a proactive, like prevention type of use, not just after they have symptoms of mobility issues. And another favorite supplement that I use a lot is medicinal mushrooms. These are really great for pets. Those things like, reishi, cordyceps, chaga, lion's mane, they all have different effects that can be have multiple benefits. So I think the medicinal mushrooms are really helpful. CBD is another really good one for behavioral health and issues, because it can be very calming. It's also very safe. Dogs have that endocannabinoid system just like we do, and utilizing that can be a nice and natural way to promote some calmness and well-being. So I think, there's looking for supplements that are tailored for senior pets, making sure that they fit that criteria for quality, and then, trying things and just sticking with them and being consistent. Just like for ourselves, you wouldn't expect to see results after you take a supplement for 2 weeks. Some of these, you have to pick something and stick with it. And, having an informed, person of expertise to help guide you to the knowledge of, which things you're not just choosing in the seeking it blind and, making those guesses on your own. I think having support is a really big key thing too.
Excellent. All right. And they can also, everybody out there, check out the book. Lots to learn and know. And we thank you for joining us. We love to cover the pet side of things too. So thank you for hopping on with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.